Okay, let's dive in. Today we're really unpacking some pretty striking details from the P. Diddy trial. Specifically, the testimony of Scott Mescudi, Kid Cudi.
Yeah, and our source material for this deep dive, it's coming straight from the Law and Crime Network's coverage. We're leaning on insights from Elizabeth Milner, the reporter who was actually in the courtroom.
Right, she saw it firsthand. So our mission here is to walk you through the key moments, maybe some surprising facts from Kid Cudi's testimony, and just try to understand what it all means in the bigger picture of the trial.
Exactly. How these personal stories fit into the legal arguments. Let's get started.
All right, so first up, Kid Cudi's appearance. You almost have to start there, right? The report paints this picture of him being super casual.
Yeah, like leather jacket, maybe slightly bedazzled, it said. White T-shirt, jeans, just not what you'd expect.
Totally. And it stands out because, as the source pointed out, pretty much every other witness in this federal trial, I mean, even some escorts apparently, they wore suits.
Yeah.
So his look was a real contrast.
Very different vibe.
And his whole demeanor apparently matched that casual look. Just walked straight to the stand, didn't really seem to pay Diddy much mind initially, just kind of there to do his thing.
The report even mentioned the scene outside before he went in.
Yeah.
Like him smoking a cigarette. It felt like a real celebrity moment, apparently.
You definitely get the sense people were waiting for this testimony, huh? The courtroom was packed, even with cold, rainy weather.
Oh, yeah. Clearly a lot of curiosity about what he was going to say.
And the source noted something interesting about Diddy's reaction during Cudi's testimony.
Right. Said that earlier, with another witness, George Kaplan, Diddy seemed more, jovial, laughing even.
But when Kid Cudi was on the stand, that smile apparently just went down. Got really serious.
Which is kind of telling, isn't it? Suggests maybe his testimony, out of all of them, really hit a nerve with Diddy. Could be the personal stuff, or just Cudi's fame adding weight.
Yeah, it could be. And speaking of reactions, the report mentioned people in the courtroom, even some jurors, were actually laughing at points during Cudi's testimony.
But the report was clear. Diddy did not look amused. Not at all.
Okay, so let's get into the actual testimony. The direct examination, that's the prosecution asking questions first. The jury had already heard the name Scott Mescudi quite a bit, apparently, before he even showed up.
That's important context, yeah. His name was already part of Cassie's story, so putting a face to the name, especially that face, probably added something for the jury.
So he talked about this specific incident way back in December 2011. Started with a call from Cassie, super early morning, 5:30, 6:30 a.m., and she sounded stressed.
Yeah, she apparently told him Diddy had found out they were dating. So Kid Cudi goes and picks her up, takes her to the Sunset Marquis Hotel. For her safety, he said.
And he also mentioned, interestingly, that he didn't think Cassie was, actively with Diddy right at that specific point. Adds a wrinkle to the timeline. But here's where it gets intense. Diddy had asked Kid Cudi for his address around that same time.
Right, and this is a really key detail from Cudi's testimony. It was actually Cassie who gave Diddy the address. Cudi said he didn't know what Diddy planned to do with it.
Then he talked about getting a call from Capricorn Clark. She was friends with Cassie, but also worked for Diddy, right?
Yeah, and Cudi testified Capricorn sounded really scared on the phone, almost crying.
And according to what Capricorn told Kid Cudi, Diddy, some unnamed guy, and Capricorn Clark herself were at Kid Cudi's house when Cudi wasn't even there.
And Cudi said he believed Diddy was inside his place, based on what Capricorn told him, that she'd been taken there using physical force.
Whoa, physical force. That phrase alone, it's heavy. And that specific account, Capricorn being taken there by force, that could be huge for the prosecution.
Absolutely, because they're pushing this racketeering charge, and one way to prove that is showing underlying crimes, like potentially kidnapping.
Yeah.
Using force to take someone somewhere that could fit.
Yeah, that definitely fits. So Kid Cudi hears this, rushes home. He described his neighborhood then as, quiet family area. Mentioned he was driving his Porsche.
And while he's driving home, he calls Diddy. The report quoted the exchange. Cudi basically says, "Mother effer, are you in my house?"
Intense call. And Diddy's response, according to Cudi, something like, "I just want to talk to you. I'm here waiting for you." And Cudi noted Diddy actually sounded, quote, relatively calm.
Which is just bizarre, given the situation, right? Very calm.
Totally bizarre. He also mentioned security cameras at his place. He thought they were recording, but when he got home, he finds them moved, angled down so they wouldn't capture what happened.
And he specifically said he didn't move them.
Right. That detail about the cameras potentially being messed with, it suggests someone wanted to hide something, doesn't it? Always looks suspicious in court.
Definitely looks bad. So he finally gets inside his house, finds these gifts, Chanel apparently, opened up on the kitchen counter. But maybe the detail that really stuck out, the really unsettling one from the report, was about his dog.
Oh, yeah, the dog. He said he'd had this dog for a couple of years, usually just roamed around the house freely.
But when he got home after this incident, the dog was locked in the bathroom. And Cudi testified that after that day, the dog was never the same. Became really jittery and on edge.
That detail about the dog, it might seem small, but it's powerful, you know. It's not just about property damage. The prosecution could use it to show the trauma of the alleged break-in, how it violated the sense of safety, affecting even the pet.
Right, it adds this visceral element. So Cudi's first reaction when he gets home and sees all this wasn't even to check the damage. He gets back in his car, calls Diddy again.
Said he wanted to fight him, right, to square up, because he was convinced Diddy had broken in.
Yeah. But then he testified he thought better of it, worried about how it could escalate. Decided to call the police instead. Probably smart.
Seems like it. The police showed up, he went back home with them, filed a report, documented everything.
And afterward, he talked to Cassie again. Said she seemed pretty depressed about the whole situation.
Understandable. The report also places this right around the holidays, December 2011. Cudi testified he spent those holidays with Cassie's family in Connecticut right after this went down.
But they broke up pretty soon after that trip.
So the timeline jumps forward just a bit, a few weeks later to January 2016. That's when the second big incident happened, the Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, just weeks after the alleged break-in, he described finding a Molotov cocktail jammed into the driver's side of his Porsche.
And they showed pictures in court. The source described the damage, roof cut or blown out, driver's side door burned up, smoke damage inside, burned seats.
Just totaled. The car was irreparable.
How did he find out?
Got a call from his dog sitter saying the car was on fire. He rushes home, sees the wreckage, the burnt bottle still there on the ground. Police were already there.
Man, and his reaction when he saw his car like that, the report called it a one-liner. Just what the heck?
Yeah, pretty much sums it up, right? Total shock. And again, this incident, the alleged arson, it's another potential piece for the prosecution's racketeering case. Yeah. Destroying property with a firebomb? That's a serious underlying crime.
So you got the alleged break-in with this element of force involving Capricorn Clark, and then weeks later, alleged arson with the car. Cudi also talked about a meeting later on at Soho House.
Right, where he, Cassie, and Diddy supposedly met up to try and, quote, hash everything out.
And a pretty significant detail Cudi mentioned, he testified that meeting was the last time he ever saw Cassie.
Wow. And he recounted asking Diddy about the car. You know, the one that got torched, asked what they were going to do about it.
And Diddy's response, according to Cudi, I don't know what you're talking about. Just denied it, flat out.
Yeah, but Cudi made his own belief clear during the redirect examination. That's when the prosecution gets another shot after the defense questions him.
Right, follow-up questions.
And during that redirect, the report said Cudi kind of snuck in his belief that Diddy was a violent person and that he was behind the Molotov cocktail. Said he definitely didn't believe Diddy's denial at that Soho House meeting.
Okay, so pulling this all together, why was Kid Cudi such an important witness for the prosecution?
Well, first off, his story backs up Cassie's account of these really specific, serious incidents. But strategically, his testimony, especially the physical force detail with Capricorn and the Molotov cocktail, that's potential evidence for those underlying crimes needed for the racketeering charge. Kidnapping, maybe. Arson, definitely.
And just having Kid Cudi on the stand, he's a huge name. That alone could make his story pretty compelling for the jury, you'd think. Adds a certain weight, maybe.
Absolutely. His profile brings a lot of attention and potentially credibility in the eyes of the jury for these specific claims within the whole case.
Okay, now let's flip to the cross-examination. This was done by Brian Steele, Diddy's lawyer. He's pretty well known, represented Young Thug too.
Yeah, and the report described his style as, like, very direct. No flash, just straight to the point, not playing to the crowd or anything.
So what did Steele try to do during cross? He brought up the fact that fingerprints and DNA were collected after the car fire. Tried to say the DNA came back female.
But that got shut down, right?
Yeah.
The source mentioned an objection was sustained, meaning the judge agreed it wasn't proper, and told the jury to disregard that specific DNA claim. So, struck from the record.
Okay, important distinction. He also seemed to really try and shift the blame, or at least the focus, onto Cassie. Steele actually said to Kid Cudi, quote, Cassie played you.
And Cudi's response was just, yes.
Wow. Short and simple. Seems like that's part of the defense strategy, maybe. Trying to paint Cassie as manipulative or untrustworthy.
Seems that way. Steele also asked about Kid Cudi's own fame back then, maybe floating the idea subtly, that it could have been a crazy fan who attacked the car, not Diddy. Didn't directly accuse anyone else, but planted a seed, maybe?
He asked about drug use, too, right? Asked if Cudi did drugs with Cassie.
And Cudi's answer was, well, we smoked some weed.
The report also mentions Steele tried getting into Cassie's sexual history. But there were sidebars, lawyers talking privately with the judge, and static noise covered it up, so we don't know exactly what was said there.
Standard procedure sometimes. Steele did ask Cudi if Cassie ever told him about being sexually abused by Diddy.
And Cudi said...
He said no, she never told him that.
And then another one of those unexpected personal moments came out during this cross-exam. Kid Cudi actually stated he was in love with Cassie.
Yeah, pretty surprising reveal. Adds a whole different emotional dimension to his involvement and perspective, doesn't it?
Definitely. He also testified, though, that he personally never saw Diddy hit Cassie, and Diddy didn't interrupt them when they were together.
Steele kept pushing on the Cassie angle, asking if she was living two different lives. Cudi said yes to that, and the cross-exam wrapped up by getting Cudi to confirm again. It was Cassie who gave Diddy his address.
And the jury through all this. The report said they seemed really tuned in, especially after seeing those photos of the burnt-out Porsche.
Yeah, those images probably made it all feel very real. And based on the reporting, it looks like the defense's goal with Cudi was largely about chipping away at Cassie's credibility, questioning her motives, suggesting maybe she manipulated both men.
So quite a deep dive there into Kid Cudi's testimony. Powerful stuff, and like you said, really personal at times.
Yeah, from the whole casual outfit thing to these really specific kind of chilling details. The dog, the gifts, the firebombed car. His account gives the prosecution some vivid material for their case.
And then you see the defense pushback, direct questions trying to create doubt, focus on Cassie's role, challenge the narrative.
Exactly. It really shows how different pieces of information work in court. Witness demeanor, emotional details, hard facts about alleged crimes like arson. The prosecution uses them to build their story. The defense tries to poke holes or offer alternatives.
It really highlights how complex these things are. So here's maybe something to chew on after hearing all this. How do you think those really personal, unexpected details Kid Cudi shared, especially something like the story about his dog's reaction, how might that land with the jury, or even just us listening, compared to just hearing the facts about, say, property damage or dates on a calendar? Does that emotional element change how the story is perceived?